Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Kathleen King, the founder of the Primal Trust Academy and Community. Today, I have with us Laura Rasines, and she is a longtime friend, also a former client, and one of the mentors in the Primal Trust Academy and Community. Laura lives in Spain, and I've known her for several years and watched her beautiful transformation. In fact, she was one of my very first clients when I started coaching. And the purpose of this interview is really to spotlight Laura and her journey and her message of hope for those that are seeking healing, seeking transformation, who've been dealing with chronic illness, trauma patterns, attachment wounding. Laura knows all about that. So thank you, Laura, for coming on and being in the spotlight today. I'd love for you to just briefly introduce a bit of what you have went through, what you have been even diagnosed with, so people have an understanding of the depth of truly your healing and transformation.
All right, thank you for having me, first of all. And well, yeah, my story began when I was a little girl. I think that I've been, kind of what we call limbic through my entire life since I was a little kid. I went through several infections that were kind of big when I was only 4 years old. And I guess that all the trauma, all the dysregulation started back then. And then in my 20s, I went through anxiety, depression, all that kind of stuff that led into taking an ABX for a UTI. And it all went all over the place. I got like
antibiotic for ABX. That's what she means. Yeah.
Sure.
In case people don't know what ABX is.
Antibiotic. True.
Yeah.
So that was a fluoroquinolone, and those are well known for being, kind of dangerous. So that UTI went away, and all the symptoms, were there still. And there's where all this journey began. I went through many doctors, all kinds of, specialists, and they were telling me that everything was okay with me. And then I began to, just look up for answers on the internet. And, I found out that I was having, am I making this too long?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I was looking for candida, that kind of stuff, and I went through candida diets. I removed all my mercury fillings, and in one of those mercury fillings removal, I got intoxicated too. So then it was when all of that really, really got worse. So I went, bedbound, severe panic attacks, convulsions. Is that the right word? Mm-hmm. Convulsions. These associations of all kinds. I didn't have any kind of energy, and I ended up in a wheelchair. So it was a total nightmare.
Wheelchair, you guys, like truly. And you were young. I mean, and you were also like, what were the diagnosis labels that you were given in this time?
Yeah, I was tested for Lyme disease, positive Lyme disease, and also coinfections like Babesia, chronic fatigue, anxiety, depression, poor detox in general. Those are some of my diagnoses.
The labels.
The labels.
The labels to describe this whole plethora that we see in this community of chronic illness that gets labeled by the medical system of the cause, if you will, of the cause that supposedly is incurable. And so with that labeling, the medical system saying you've got this, and this, and sorry, well, that's a lot of bad luck to have all of that. I remember feeling the same way, like, how is it possible that my body is just an open field for all of these infections, and like, what bad luck is this? So you've got all these labels, what made you lift off the labels to go to the next stage of healing, which is what we call limbic system retraining, or retraining the chronic stress response in the brain? How did you, how did you find that? What made you choose that? I'll let you go into that story.
Okay, long story short, a friend of my family, one of her daughters was having multiple chemical sensitivities. And I met with her, and she told me, I'm just visiting with a doctor that is a neurologist, and he's teaching me about the brain and about the nervous system. And I was like, well, okay, but I got all of these labels, and that has nothing to do with me. So, all the information just, stood there with me, but I didn't do anything. Till the day someone wrote me at a forum on the internet, a Lyme disease forum, and she was like, look, I've been using this program, maybe you can use it to help you with the Lyme. And I was like, wow. I connected the dots, like, wow, maybe this has to do, with the brain and the nervous system, and this is true. So then I began to just look up on the internet about this stuff, and I was like, okay, but I didn't have any money, so I had to do like a GoFundMe campaign. And I got some money, and I could buy the DVDs, the DNRS DVDs set. And that was the beginning of the journey with neuroplasticity. I remember just watching those DVDs and thinking, wow, that is me. That is me. This is the solution. And my energy went from this to this in 15 days after watching the DVDs. In fact, I left my wheelchair in only 3 weeks. It was amazing.
Yeah. And that's the way it can happen when the brain starts to recognize, oh, this is somewhat self-induced, not that we cause it, but it's the brain, it's not just an infection. I had a very similar response when I had the aha moment that there was some processing in my own brain that was causing a tremendous amount of my Lyme symptoms, and seeing and doing some brain processing stuff and having it shift was such a radical turnaround for me too. And a liberation, because now I had a sense of empowerment return. So you've just described that first stage. We're going to describe a few stages of transformation today through Laura's story. Okay. So she's wheelchair bound, diagnosed with all these illnesses. She takes her first step of empowerment, which is limbic system retraining. She started with DNRS. That's how I met you. I started coaching you with neuroplasticity. And then there's a couple other stages that helped you pull out of this, stages that we talk about in the Primal Trust work. So I'd love to hear your staged process of transformation and healing.
Okay, you really helped me to understand that I was just, with the brain retraining mode, I was still in the 3D world. I was still using the cause and effect all of the time. And I remember you telling me, you gotta just go and live your life and use the tools to incrementally train with your life. That is going to be a really beautiful shift in your nervous system. And that's what I did. So I began to just live my life more. I began dating a man. I began going to concerts, even though I was still having those symptoms.
Yeah.
My energy was very different. So I was going from the 3D to a more 4th dimensional kind of shift, living more from my core and learning to be back in the world, even though I was still having those symptoms.
Yeah.
That was really important.
In that stage, you guys who's listening, this is one of the hardest stages for people to make, at least that I work with. When I say, okay, you're doing this limbic retraining, now I challenge you, and I ask that you find a way to start living, using your tools to help you live, not just fix your brain. Like, oh, I got to fix my brain first and then I'll live, because I see that mistake a lot. I've got to fix this and then I'll go live. And I'm like, how about you go live and use these tools where you're showing your ego, your protection mechanisms, that It's possible to live and feel happy, even with symptoms, with low energy, with even a little bit of consequence. There's something magical that starts happening there when you move from a victim of this situation to the creator of your life, moving from what you just described, the third dimension consciousness, to the fourth dimension consciousness, which is soul-led willingness to be present with what is and begin to live.
And I remember being at a concert with 30,000 people, still having those AKA symptoms in Madrid, in a heat wave. I was there, with all the symptoms, but I was feeling a part of the tribe.
Yeah, you felt like
tribe.
You were living. I remember that. I remember because we were coaching back then. Yeah. That's awesome.
It was amazing. Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit about this next level of healing, which I call the Primal Trust embodiment, which is what I teach. I often work with people who start brain retraining and they're like, well, I'm feeling a little better, but I can't quite get to living. What is the Primal Trust leap that we describe in this community that you made to be able to be at this point where you're at today? What is that?
Well, in my opinion, it has to do with the fifth dimension. And it's like living from your heart, knowing that you are going to see stuff that you don't like, but you have to be the observer. You have to be the observer from the heart. So living the values, who you truly are, and being that, even if someone doesn't like you, being someone that you were meant to be in the beginning, and the world, the trauma, the everything didn't let you back then. It's like, getting again, your crown and putting your crown back at you. It's like, hey, you're the king, you're the queen of your kingdom. And that's what you're meant to be.
Yeah.
From the heart.
From the heart. That's so beautiful. And that really describes this journey of primal trust that we're teaching here, which is heart-led, values-based rewiring, reclaiming your own healthy inner ego structure that may have been improperly developed in some ways, inner attachment repair, and this true self-discovery, which is this limitless being of love and light that's always inherently safe. And that's primal trust, this inherent sense of safety that you can find through your ability of being that curious observer of like, oh my gosh, even with these symptoms, I am full of love and light. I am worthy. I am deserving. And this ability to bring in self-love, right? So you really modeled that and had that happen. And so, now here you are. Is there anything you want to say about that before I continue?
That I always channel animals, images, stuff. I'm a channeler. I always channel stuff, when I am speaking, and I always, when I see, and when I speak about the heart, it always comes to my mind, the lion. I am a Leo, and I always think about the lion. So it's like big-hearted. We are all big-hearted, but we don't know yet.
So if you were to describe a difference in your focus on how you use rewiring with a primal trust focus versus how you did at the very beginning with DNRS, when you were doing DNRS, what is the difference for people to understand? Like, what is that difference in how you use these tools?
In my opinion, the difference is fear. You're using, when you're brain retraining, only brain retraining, you're just doing that because you have lots of fear and you want to be well. But with primal trust is different because you're not using the tools with fear. You know that there'll be some things that you don't like, still in your body, still in your mind, but you know how to carve that security inside of you without the fear of using the tools well or not, or am I doing this right or not? It's like letting go of that fear and living more from that neural pathway of, primal trust. That is your main adult personality. That's what I think.
I love that. And you've described what I've said to people as like, I recommend that you use these tools. Like, how would you use these tools if you were well? Why would you do brain retraining? Why would you do this? Well, you'd be doing this for true self-discovery and expansion, and like, finding ways to create your life. You'd be doing all this life creation stuff. So why not do that now, even though you're ill, and use these tools as a way of increasing your life force and your sense of satisfaction in your day, rather than this fear-based, like, I need to do this in order to recover. That mentality is not helpful in the long run. I need to brain retrain so I can recover. No, brain retrain so that you can live that loving, light-filled being that you are, and bring the most abundance into your life and discover yourself. And I think that's what you've described with that dimensional conscious shift of a fifth dimensional focus on brain retraining.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really beautiful. So now you're mentoring. You've been coaching for a while. We've brought you in Primal Trust, now mentoring others in this process. Tell me a little bit about why you want to be a mentor. What lights you up about it? Why this? Why is this your next step?
Because I like people when they empower themselves. I like being, a little bit of a component that has to do with that, the empowerment journey. It's like, hey guys, we've been bullied all of our lives with all those thoughts, all of those emotions, and now we need to go back and empower ourselves. And being a little bit of a catalyst for that, for people, puts my heart on fire. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, Laura, you're amazing. And you're one of the, I just started launching this mentoring program. You're one of the first people I thought of, because you do carry the transmission here. You carry the message through you. You live it. You want others to be free. And you understand, you've been at the depths of the depths and you've risen. And that right there is so empowering for other people to see what's possible. You understand these concepts of how to use brain retraining and tools for a higher purpose than just recovery alone. Yeah.
In my opinion, it's a God's call or a universe call for everybody. We are not just here to be flesh and bones. We're more than that.
Yeah. What do you feel like are some of your gifts in working with people?
I guess one of my best gifts is just connecting with people's hearts and souls more than the ego, because many times you can be trying to help someone, and if he or she is just they're in their egos, you can get a little bit, you don't have the message of the soul and the heart, the willing, the longing of the heart and the soul. So that's what I love seeing in people, more than the complaining, more than the pops or this symptom or this thought or whatever. I've said pops, it's just, that's a DNRS term that stands for negative thoughts and that kind of stuff. But I like seeing the people's child, the child inside of them, that is just they're longing for connection, the help me connection, but in a deeper way. So I see that very easily. And also I channel a lot, as I said before, images, intuition. I have a big intuition, and I love connecting the somatic part of the body, of feeling emotion, and combining it with the images that we are just very used to do when we visualize. That's a beautiful alchemy. That's what I like to do.
I want to mention here for people listening that I've chosen Laura to translate Primal Trust into Spanish for me, and we'll be teaching it because she gets it. She and I are very similar in our feeling, our philosophy, the way we see things. And, I'm just really excited about that. Hopefully that'll be coming some point in the next year, to be able to have Primal Trust in Spanish, because you really do carry the transmission that I'm looking for. And you're just an amazing woman, and really you've never settled for that victim mentality. Even when things are hard, you're like, help me see this differently. I want to see this differently. You've dealt with the physical stuff, the attachment wounding, energetic issues, all of it. And you've continued to say, no, I'm going to transform. I'm going to rise above, which is primal trust. And you so embody that. Now, for those that are listening, what mistakes did you make, or what do you wish you would have known earlier? If people are just listening, they're just getting started in this process of self-healing, brain retraining. What would you say? What would be some advice for them?
Stop being rigid with stuff.
Stop being what? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Rigid.
Rigidity.
It's like when I began with DNRS, I was so rigid with my pups. I can tell you I was going super, super, super rigid with them. Mm-hmm. And that became a little bit of a new loop.
And POPs describe what POPs are, because a lot of people don't know.
POPs stand for pathways of the past. Those are, all the past thoughts, the negative stuff that, run through our minds when we're pretty limbic. So I was there trying to catch them all, and that was really exhausting. So don't do that. Yeah. I mean, rigidity is not good at all in life with anything. So more flow. It's okay if you just, go wrong with a tool, if you're not doing completely, 100% perfect with something, just because that helps you to understand what's your way of doing things.
Right. That's such a highlight point, because I see people using these tools as I've got to do this perfectly, which is just the same obsession of there's something wrong. I need to do it just right. I need to do it exactly like they said. Oh my goodness, I didn't do my brain retraining practice today just right. And they only believe they can heal if they do it perfectly. And that actually keeps them in the cycle. And so catching that and recognizing this structured program, yes, it's a structure, but if you start obsessing about the structure, you're continuing the chronic stress response. And now you're stuck in another loop. So I agree with that recognition. I agree. And I love how you describe that you brought in more freedom and flow, and that's more of the feminine. The masculine is the structure process, and the feminine allows for flow and creativity and adjustment and making it your own, which is what we teach in Primal Trust, to learn how to make it your own. So that's awesome. And then I guess I'd like you to end with any type of final message, advice. If you're, speaking to a crowd here, what do you have to say to them when they're like, is it possible? Can I heal? What do I need to do? I want to believe that I can be where you are at, but I feel so sick and stuck. What would you say?
Well, first of all, I'm still a little bit nervous. So everybody can be this way if you're being interviewed,
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how much work you have done. I would say, of course you can heal, but there's a part that is not your responsibility, and that's the universe and God's responsibility. So you have to let it go. You have to do your part and then let it go, because there's a beautiful magic in what you don't know, in the unknown. You have to trust, and that is primal trust, absolute primal trust. That is 5th dimension, absolute 5th dimension. Mm-hmm. So that would be my message.
I think that's so good. And that is the quantum leap of, okay, I can heal, but I can't be in control. I can heal, and how do I surrender to the magical mystery? And that is the development of primal trust, this paradoxical thing of going for your healing and for your freedom, but surrendering to the timing and the will of some higher aspect of you that has learning for you, and unraveling of your unconscious wounding, that sometimes these symptoms, the body is saying to you, like, I'm hurting in this way and I need you to see it, because if this just goes away, you won't see it and you won't learn the lesson here of self-love, of forgiveness, etc. And so you know, we want that healing, and sometimes we want to skip over the transformation. And
Absolutely.
I was the same way. And I'm sure, like, you know, do you regret having to have gone through this now? Like, what would your life be like if you hadn't went through this hardship? I mean, how would it be different?
It wouldn't be, you know, it would be so much different. It would be like the same years ago, a mess, anxiety, attachment wounding, all that stuff. So it was absolutely worth it. And, you know, God was telling me in little doses, hey, girl, you gotta just fix, you know, you gotta just know about this. This is happening to you. This is happening to you. But I didn't listen. I was so asleep, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I remember being the same way, trying so hard to fix myself, but not dropping into like, what is the wounding in me that needs to be addressed? Like the fear, the blame, the anger, the lack of self-love. I wanted so much just to like rewire my brain or use these tools. And I didn't want to have to open my heart. And that is what you're describing, this like, I got to open my heart and use these tools to open my heart, not just fix myself, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it hurts and it's
Oh
not
yeah,
easy.
totally. I mean, yeah, it can hurt. And at the same time, it's like this restoration of a little more of you coming back in that was lost maybe back in childhood when, you know, things were rough. So this has really been great. And I'm just so happy to have you, you know, mentoring people and available and spreading your message. And I really recommend anybody who resonates with Laura to reach out to her for helping with some of that, the inner wounding that might be hard to sort out on your own. She's incredibly gifted and intuitive and can help illuminate that pattern for you so that you can see it and choose to transform through it. Yeah, so any last words before we end?
I'm shaking.
You're shaking. Well, you did great. This was an awesome interview. You were so brave to be one of the first people that I've spotlighted like this. And for me, it's just like I said, Laura was literally one of my, I mean, I think she was my fourth client, you know, so you've known me for gosh, years now, and I've known you, and we've literally watched each other just do this in our own way. And
Yeah.
there's just been such a beautiful connection. You're a soul sister. You are a woman that's helping to awaken the divine feminine. You're on the path of ascension and awakening, and it's just such an honor to be part of your life. And I love you. So thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. I love you too. You're
everybody
amazing.
for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll stop.